So he's been a part of several studies. Like I said, some was with his body temperature, where he's been able to sustain his internal heat without, I guess, without developing hypothermia. Um, and one recently in 2018, which I think was in Michigan. He was able to keep his body warm without doing his contractions and breathing, which, well, I guess is more complicated than that. So the first day he did it, out of the 74 subjects or however many there were, he was the only one able to retain heat. And then the next day they told him to stop breathing and doing the other stuff so that they can get a more conclusive information. And when they did that, his body temperature did drop dramatically like everybody else. On the third day, he actually went into it looking at it a little differently, where he tried to use the power of the mind to basically control his body temperatures, which he hadn't necessarily done before in that sense, but he had basically, what was the best way? He had looked at it in his own head as like, well, what made me able to do some of the stuff that I've done in the past and how I broke some of these records. And some of it was that I believed I could do it. So that's exactly what he did. He went in there and just kind of focused his energy on trying to keep his temperature warm. And it turned out that when they got the results back, he was actually able to raise his body temperature by 1 degree, which is very, very impressive. So he's been able to do quite a bit. I know there's more studies. One, he actually got, which I for some reason kind of skipped over, although I have this wrote down. He was actually able to reverse or prevent his body from reacting to an injection of E. coli, which typically people respond to. So the first time he did it was on his own, and he had lower inflammatory markers in his blood, which basically allowed for inflammation caused by the virus and the body's response. And that would allow his body to basically fend off the virus better and not react to the symptoms as much. And then they wanted him to basically reproduce the same effect, but with more people. So at the time, he ended up training, I think, 12 other individuals within basically a week. And they came out to his place in Poland to train in his method and to learn the breathing techniques and the meditation and all this stuff, to see if they could do the same thing he did when it came to the results with the E. coli. And I think it was within 10 days of knowing, basically starting it, they did the test and they ran it, and the findings were very similar. And that I think it was IL-6 and 8, which are certain markers in your blood that is released from certain parts of your brain to basically cause inflammation. Those numbers were lower and a different one was higher, which kind of allows your body not to basically get an inflammatory response to the disease or other forms like that, which is pretty crazy. I know he does talk about how he has skeptics and he's very aware of it, and a lot of this does seem very I guess weird and hard to believe, which it definitely is. But the main thing he talks about, and I guess I would recommend too, I want to learn to do, or I want to do his technique more and kind of get into it and see how it kind of affects me personally. And he kind of says the same, where it's like just kind of find your way into it, and if it's good for you and whatnot, to do it. And which a lot of the stuff, I guess, does have some merit to an extent, and more studies have been done, and eventually it might be able to prove a lot more of what he preaches, considering he did a lot of this basically on his own for the past 40 years. He didn't really start getting any recognition or noticed by any of this besides like the early 2000s. So it took him a long time to kind of get out of that and into the mainstream. And his whole message is wanting basically just an everyday person to be more, or well, to have the ability to kind of take control of their health. And if they can do that through breathing and cold exposure and kind of affecting their bodies and doing things differently, that he rather them do that than fall in line with the pharmaceutical companies, because that's what he personally had seen with his wife, where she dealt with depression and anxiety very, very terribly, and was prescribed medications and injections and a bunch of other pharmaceutical forms to try fixing this, and that it didn't work. So it kind of made him want to be able to bring a different form of, I guess, quote unquote treatment, or a way to help balance today's stresses, which have never, as a society, we have never had until recently, and to basically go back to a more natural state, in the sense of we can have an effect on our own well-being, and by doing these things and forcing yourself to do stuff you don't like, and kind of forcing your body to become I guess more primal, in the sense of giving it the old states of stress, that this can help with any sense of doing these things. I mean, it's been shown that because of cold exposure, that it actually lowers depression and stuff like that. That's been proven. So a lot of this does have some merit to it in some way or another. Some of the stuff you might say, there might still need to be plenty of studies done on it, and he acknowledges that too, and he talks about that in the book. But I would recommend anybody to actually read this book to see what you think, because it is very intriguing, and considering what he's been able to do, and he's also 63 at this point and still doing a lot of this stuff daily, and just the amount of people he has been able to help, and this and that, it is very, very intriguing. And so I mean, I'm probably gonna have my own curiosity with it and try to, I guess, experiment with it and see how it makes me feel. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that anybody should necessarily do it, but I mean, it never hurts to look.